Hello Guardians, and welcome to Destiny Reset episode 207. This show is about anything and everything related to the Destiny franchise. If you love playing Destiny 2 as much as we do, you're in the right place. This reset, we welcome back friend of the show Mercules904 to talk about the upcoming Solstice of Heroes, debate whether raid matchmaking belongs in the game, and finally give another take on a community email about difficulty in Destiny 2. Guardians, and welcome. It's CyborgSasquatch here, and I've got a special guest with me today. Welcome back to the show, Mercules. How you doing, man?
I am fantastic, and thank you so much for having me on the show. It's always fun to be on Destiny Reset.
I love having you on. You're a fun guy to talk to in a pinch.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm kind of filling in for AER0KNIGHT tonight, I guess.
Yep, he unfortunately couldn't make it to the show. Something came up, so it's you and I, but I think we can hold it down, right? We've got a little experience with this gig, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain. I mean, you guys are at a little over 200 episodes, and we're at 127, so I feel like we've talked on microphones a pretty decent amount.
If they haven't fired us by now, then I don't think they're going to.
Well, that's the trick. As long as we're our own boss, right? We're never going to fire ourselves, are we?
No, I don't. I don't plan on it.
We'd have to be pretty bad for that to happen.
Yeah, you got to run us off the air.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about some Destiny tonight, of course. Let's take a couple minutes. I mean, Merc, you've been on the show a number of times now. I don't even know how many times. At least 2-3 times at this point, right?
I think this is my third.
Yeah. So, if you don't know Mercules and what he does, you might know his brand, Massive Breakdowns. Why don't you just take a minute, tell people about who you are, what you do?
Yeah, man. So Massive Breakdowns, they're mostly a series of Destiny Reddit posts that pretty much talk about weapons and the best perks and their stats and things like that. I sometimes talk about mechanics. I used to write for Planet Destiny. I've written for PC Gamer. I've written for Destiny Tracker. I worked at Bungie for a short period of time as a gameplay specialist out there, which was pretty cool. And now I'm pretty much the host of the Massive Breakdown podcast. So myself and a buddy, Kate Kutcha, we talk about weapons, we talk about mechanics, we talk about gameplay, and tonight we talked about matchmaking. So it's a good time.
Oh Lord, I'm not going to touch that topic with a 10-foot pole tonight.
Yeah, it gets a little toxic. We'll say that. Not inside of the podcast, obviously, because we keep it clean,
but just the conversation, and you know. So if you want to hear about matchmaking, go catch Massive Breakdowns episode this coming week, and you can hear him and Kit talk about that.
Yeah. We both have some pretty strong opinions on it, so it's always a good time.
That's good. Good to have a good debate. Yeah. So Massive Breakdowns, so you do, some enormous articles and text posts. I mean, I think, a lot of people are most familiar with your Massive Breakdowns that you do on Reddit. But then as well, on your podcast, you guys like to hash those things out over audio and break down things. And then sometimes you're doing some just general Destiny talk and talk about hot topics like matchmaking, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, the Massive Breakdown name was kind of an accident, and I think I've told this story before, but I literally put Massive Breakdown in the title because it was just a huge, giant wall of text. And I wanted to warn people that, like, when they opened up this guide, it was just going to be a lot.
Massive.
And so I said that, it was a breakdown, but I said Massive Breakdown of such and such. And then it was pretty well received. So I put it on the next one, and then I just kept putting it on them. And soon enough, Massive Breakdowns kind of became known, and people would see the Massive Breakdown thing and be like, oh, he's probably talking about a lot of perks or a lot of numbers or a lot of stats or a lot of strategy. And they're all very, very long and very in depth. And that's why the podcast was just kind of a natural place to go, because, when you're writing something, like I'm trying to still keep it as brief as I can when I'm writing it. Writing it takes a long time, but when you're talking, you got the freedom to go anywhere, and
it's not massive on purpose, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's massive despite my best efforts to keep it concise.
That's fair. I have to ask you, kind of tangent, but what do you think of the new shooting range on the Leviathan that we've got?
I mean, it's better than nothing. That's definitely for sure. Like if you've got all your weapons up at 750, you can pretty much just compare them head to head and see which one does more. It's got a lot of problems. It doesn't have a guardian in it, which you can shoot, right? Which means you can't test PvP damage. Still gotta use private matches for that, which isn't the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
But also the light scaling in it is like not turned off, so it just scales infinitely. So like if we were to test all of those 750 weapons now, and then when Shadowkeep comes out, we were to get some higher level weapons, like we'd have to redo all the tests at that level.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, which is why, Greg the Ogre is still probably going to be the best way to do PvE testing. But, like I said, better than nothing. I'd much rather have a not perfect shooting range than no shooting range at all.
Yeah. Well, and maybe they can take some lessons from it and improve it or change it down the line, Yeah,
I hope so. I mean, it's a great start, right?
Yeah,
like we've needed something like this for a long time, but and it's actually good enough that it's halfway convinced me to hop into the I shouldn't say hop, dip my toes in the PvE numbers side of things. So I'm working on a PvE spreadsheet right now, but by God, man, I thought shotgun testing was bad for PvP, but DPS testing for PvE is a whole nother kind of awful. So
I pretty much take anything I see people post about numbers and DPS with a grain of salt, because it's not uncommon to hear completely conflicting information about what's hot and what's not, Well, like, did you do this? Did you consider this? What about these buffs? And then this gun and, time to kill over a period. Like there's so much different optimization to consider. It's okay, is this in the top 90th percentile? Great, I'll use it,
Yeah, and that's honestly what it comes down to. Like the people who actually need to maximize DPS are the people who are either way under leveled and they shouldn't be doing it anyways, or the people who are trying to like do it man down or like 2-man or something like that.
Yeah, they're trying to do like a cheesy challenge.
So many
or something.
variables, man. It's really, really terrible. And like my thing that I'm trying to do is basically remove all the variables from it and just get the pure damage numbers, and then just allow multipliers to be applied like universally, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I did with the massive breakdown spreadsheet, which is probably what I'm actually most known for, is that spreadsheet. But there's like a page in the front that shows all the damage numbers and times to kill of every gun, and then you can choose like multipliers to add to it so you can compare stuff. Like, and that's what I would like to do for PvE, because I think it would really, really simplify things, and a lot of the charts that I see out there right now just have a whole host of variables kind of included in them that really conflate the numbers and make it hard to read.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this is this way when you have this and this, but it makes it hard to strip away and get raw stuff, if you're trying to think about different scenarios that you're in, right?
Yeah.
So that'd be great, man. Just get right on that.
Yeah. I'll just after I'm taking a vacation this weekend, going down South Florida, do some scuba diving. But after I'm done with that, next week I'll come back and I'll put my nose at the grindstone and I'll get this shit knocked out.
Okay, appreciate that.
No problem.
Well, definitely check out Merc's podcast with Kit. It's a great show. Two really cool guys. And they do all this work, just for the hell of it. It's a hobby, but it's definitely helped me plenty over my Destiny career, his write-ups and in their show, and learning about all the numbers and the stuff behind Destiny. So definitely go support them, give them a follow. So we're gonna go into the news and things here. I don't think we have any announcements this week, unless you have anything cool to announce, like a great piece of pie you ate yesterday, or that you're gonna change your preferred class, or just anything. You got any scoops for us?
Nope. Nothing really crazy like that. Just right. Enjoying the salt that comes with Iron Banner rolling back into town, and basically staying as far away from it as possible.
Yeah, definitely. I hear you on that. So no announcements this week. We're going to get into the news now. And as usual, we're going to kick it off with this week at Bungie. This week at Bungie, things are heating up for Solstice of Heroes. The next big beat for Season of Opulence is almost upon us. Of course, it brings new moments of triumph and a new title. You'll also you'll be challenged to upgrade a Solstice of Heroes armor set by completing various objectives throughout Destiny 2. So we've got a Solstice of Heroes article We'll go through that here after the TWAB and talk about that a little bit. I know I'm a little bit excited for Solstice. Are you going to partake in the festivities this year, man?
No, for sure. I mean, it's been a I don't want to call it a habit, but it's definitely been a thing that I try to do where I try to get the Moments of Triumph done every single year. I think I've hit them every single year so far. And last year,
I've done the same.
The Estival Excursion, the ship from Solstice of Heroes, was like, I had to have it because so many of the ships in Destiny, they only come from Eververse, and I don't really care about that.
Right.
Like, this was an earnable ship, but it was also difficult to earn.
Yeah, it was a grind.
Have it. So I got that done in a week because I had to spend the entire next week driving across the entire United States back from Bungie to Florida. And I wasn't going to be able to play at all. So I had a very limited time with which I could get it done, and I did, and I'm proud of that. And I have not taken that ship off of any of my 3 characters yet. And I think, purely just for that reason.
Was just rocking it until like maybe a month ago. And I think I put on like Nano Phoenix or something when I got that.
Well, that's a fair ship.
Yeah.
If
it was a fair enough trade, right?
Yeah.
Definitely hard earned. Anything hard earned, I like to keep on. Like if one of my guys are rocking the scrap. What is it? The one from the mission.
Outbreak Perfected.
Yeah, Outbreak Perfected.
From 0 Hour.
Yeah. Got to rock that scrap. What is it? CF something.
Yeah,
that one was hard to get. Like
it's an interesting ship. The only ship that has a headlight on it, though, so they got that going for it.
So you can check out the scrap, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Solstice, and a cool, exciting boon this year, definitely makes it worth it, in my opinion, is they announce here that if you have what it takes to fully upgrade your armor set to the legendary tier, you'll also find an Armor 2.0 version of your Solstice of Heroes set at the gunsmith when Shadowkeep launches. So this is pretty cool. We'll at least have, a set going right into the initial activities that we can put on and start to tinker with that system. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really have any choice. They kind of had to do this. People were furious last year that, they worked so hard to get that legendary set, and then 2 weeks later it was totally useless.
Oh, yeah.
And the backlash would have been insane if they had invalidated this armor set too.
Yeah, I remember those feels because I had mine on all my guys going into Forsaken, and I was like, I'm gonna wear this as long as I can, but pretty soon I had to take all that stuff off and went to
like
the
10
vault.
minutes.
Yeah,
you're like, well, that got me killed on the very first adventure I went into. So
I just didn't want to take it off, man. It was such a grind. But This is nice. We'll be able to go into those missions wearing our new stuff, and it'll have the Armor 2.0. So, nice. Of course, also this past week we've had the Iron Banner, with all those bounties and all that fun stuff. I have not messed around with any of that this season. You been doing any Iron Banner, man?
I despise Iron Banner with a burning passion.
All right.
I think it is probably the worst game type that exists in Destiny because it is straight up skill-based match made, but with no indication of, what level you're playing at. So I do not have fun, but what I do use is the fact that all the sweaty kids are in Iron Banner, and I go play some comp, and it's nice and easy, and I get to gain a little bit of glory, maybe a little bit easier than I normally would have.
There you go. That's one way. At least you got the bright side thinking on it,
Yeah.
There are some emblems coming your way. If you took place in 2 events, the weekend of Prometheus Lens, or the past couple Iron Banners where Lord of Wolves reigned supreme. They mentioned there's going to be an update next week, 2.5.2, where they're going to make some changes to Lord of Wolves. And if you have played a Crucible match, I believe, while that was going on, you'll unlock a triumph that comes available that you redeem, and it will give you it says a loss history package at the Postmaster. That unlocks a triumph, and then once you claim it, you get an emblem. Pretty cool little emblem. And then they also are creating a emblem for the old Prometheus Lens weekend that took place back in 2017, which this emblem is the best emblem possibly ever made, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's incredibly good, and I'm very much looking forward to rocking the emblem that I earned by playing a single Crucible match, or by finishing a Crucible match between 10 a.m. Pacific time December 8th and 10 a.m. Pacific time December 12th, which was, I believe, the weekend that Xur sold the Promethean lens, so everybody could have it. So yep. I'm definitely gonna be slapping that on. I'm interested to see how many people actually rock it, because
I think a lot.
If I remember correctly, that was like the beginning of the end of Destiny, and so I'm wondering how many people had already quit by that point in time that are now back. And
interesting.
They won't have that, so we'll see who the hardcore
a lot of people
are, the people who stuck around.
You say that, but like I even noticed a friend of mine who wasn't playing Destiny at that time. Like he went and checked, and he said, "Yeah, it looks like I jumped on that weekend and played a Crucible match just to jump in the fun." So I wonder how many people weren't playing that heard about that, because it was all over social media, and we're like, "Oh, let me go check this out," because it was pretty hilarious.
It was a damn good time. It was laser tag. I mean, it's iconic. It was a historic moment in Destiny 2's history. I
think everybody should put it on when we get it next week and go into Crucible with Prometheus lens and just team shoot each other.
What's pretty cool is we'll be able to see like some of the websites out there like give you a percentage owned for various items. So like we'll actually be able to see the percentage owned on this emblem, and so we'll actually have a number of like how many people. I think there's like 15 million Destiny accounts out there right now that have played a game. So we'll be able to see what percent of them actually own this.
There you go. I'd have to guess at least like, 250,000 or so would probably end up with this emblem, but
I'm going to hope it's 12. And
yes, 12.
Me and the 11 other people who were in my game.
There you go. Just y'all. I hate to break it to you, but I was not in that game, so it's going to be at least 13.
Well, actually, back then it wasn't 6v6, was it yet? So it's still 4v4.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you're right.
At least 2 games, 16 people.
There you go.
Those were dark times.
They mention so we've got some details on the 2.5.2 update. We're getting a change to Lord of Wolves. They're going to reduce the amount of ammo shotgun scavenger perks can give to Lord of Wolves when in the Release the Wolves state. They're decreasing the effective range on Lord of Wolves. They mention this decrease is more aggressive when in the Release the Wolves state. So you think this will do the trick?
Probably not enough on PC.
Yeah.
Probably will serve to drive it even further into the ground on console. I mean, I was looking at the numbers earlier today, and I think Lord of Wolves accounted for 30% of kills on PC today or something like that. Like something insane. And then on console it was like around 1%.
Yeah, it's not really used to
I mean, it doesn't have the stability that it does on PC. So I think on PC, I mean, to me, it reads like you can just not be in Release the Wolves, and Shotgun Scavenger will give you the normal amount of ammo, and then you just activate Release the Wolves.
Yeah.
And even if they decrease the range, I don't think it's going to do a ton unless it's like a crazy aggressive decrease, because the range on PC is pretty damn near unlimited. My suggestion was that they should hard cap it, which is what they did in D1. It had a hard cap at 15 meters.
Yeah, I remember
that. And it did
that.
Full damage up until 15 meters and then no damage after. And it's what Acreus does in D2. Acreus does 100% damage up to 10 meters and then 0 damage after it. So we know that they can do it. And that would be the way that I would think would not affect it on console and would solve the issue on PC. But it appears like they want to try something else. So personally, I don't think it's going to crush it, but we'll have to check the range numbers once it comes out.
I just wonder why, because we know that they can balance weapons differently on PC. Why, like in a case like this, they don't do that?
Because especially with cross save coming and with new light, I mean, if you are an Xbox player, I think they want you to be able to go over to PC and experience what basically amounts to the same game.
So they want to limit that as much as possible.
Yeah, and
but yet there's no bloom on hand cannons.
Yeah, and when you play with mouse and keyboard, but if you play with a controller on PC, there still is. So Which makes sense, right? Because it's not fun to have to deal with stability issues on a mouse and keyboard, because you just have to keep dragging the mouse down to try to counter it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I'm of the opinion that they could balance and keep both happy better than they do. But, you know, if there's ever been an overworked team at Bungie, it's definitely the Sandbox team. So
yeah, I get that would take a lot of work, and it seems like they need a bigger team.
Yeah.
Just an opinion. Tribute Hall, they're changing how the Emperor's Gladiator and Scoundrel in Uniform triumphs work. So it will no longer require a full set of Leviathan gear. You'll earn points based on the number of gear pieces worn, similar to other triumphs. So I think those were I'm guessing the Menagerie and the Gambit ones that you had to wear a full set, I think, to achieve. I'd have to double check.
I honestly don't know. I figured I would just get those done as I got those done, and so
I know the Nightfall one
loadouts
was confusing people a little bit, where you had to wear like a complete set to complete it.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, they're changing this, I think, to make it a little more straightforward.
Nice.
Iron Banner, they're changing quest objective values for future events, reducing grenade kills required by 50%, and your ally grenade kills will be worth the same as your own. Also reducing sword kills required by 25%, and ally sword kills will be worth as much as your own. I haven't done any of these quests, so this is news to me. I'm glad I don't have to go into Iron Banner and get sword kills. Thank you very much.
If only I played Iron Banner, I would be thrilled about these changes, I'm sure. But
right.
I can't imagine anything that I would want to do less than go play Iron Banner without like a good loadout and have to deal with everything that comes with that.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of quest objectives that require me to like get grenade kills. Now get melee kills. I don't know. That might seem like lame or vanilla, like you gotta have some kind of quest objectives, but I get tired of stuff like that.
I always like it better when they do like a points-based thing where they're like, every single thing you do gives you a certain amount of points, and some things give you more points than others to incentivize that, but they're not required, right? Like those are the type of things I like.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot more, because it gives you a little more, typically it gives you a little more flexibility with how you can achieve it. For instance, like if you go in and it's like, go into the Crucible and get void kills. Okay, like I can do it with my abilities. I can do it with a void weapon, you know, stuff like that feels a little less grindy than when you just have to go in and you can't progress until you get 100 grenade kills or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Then it just feels like a chore.
Yes, it absolutely does.
Yeah. Feedback. Feedback's important. Menagerie/Chalice, they mentioned Heroic Menagerie will drop a sword for first time completion. That's great, because I've done a bunch of these. I haven't got any swords yet. And apparently I think I need like all 3 of them for the title. So I'm not making much progress.
I have not done a single Heroic Menagerie. Ever since they fixed the chest glitch, I have not run a Menagerie at all.
Yeah, I've been doing it to try to get the triumphs for the title and stuff. Otherwise, I don't think I'd be doing it.
Yeah, those titles, I look at them and I'm like, man, I really want those. And then I actually look at what it takes and I'm like, maybe not. So that's why I'm going to try to get the Moments of Triumph one, because that one I know that I can do. Yeah,
I get that. They also mentioned subsequent completions will have a moderate chance to drop a sword, 25%. I guess I can live with that.
I'm glad they get some numbers there. That's always nice to see.
Yeah, I love seeing numbers of stuff. A little bit of transparency. I've been seeing more and more transparency on stuff like this when they're doing updates, and I really appreciate that. You know, it's been a long time.
They know what the players want.
What's that?
I said they know what the players want. I mean, we've been begging them for numbers on sandbox balance patches and stuff for years and years and years, and they finally seem like, not every time, but some of the time they're giving it to us.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely helps just to have some transparency, so you kind of know at least the odds on things sometimes. They mentioned there's going to be some patch prep for 2.5.2. It's going to come on Tuesday, July 30th. Typical time between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Pacific time. This will be going on. They do mention if you're on console and it's taken an abnormally long time to receive the update, then to try to do so manually. This seems to be a recurring theme lately that they've noticed this going on. So if you don't get the update coming through after the server downtime, you'll want to go and check their article for how you can achieve that. Typically, though, I think it involves hard resetting your console. I think that's how you set it up, but go check the article if you have any trouble. Personally, I haven't had that issue show up, but I'm sure there are players that are.
Yeah, I've been lucky to not have it either.
Yeah. I like when things work as intended.
It'd be nice.
Yeah. Oh, another clarification, and I'm actually kind of disappointed about this because I was speculating last week, but this week, of course, we get increased Valor gains, and I was really hoping that those increased Valor gains would reflect in the triumph that you need for earning Valor in the Crucible while wearing Menagerie armor. Unfortunately, that is not the case. You still get normal amount of Valor from your games. Yeah, I think it's like if you have a full set, I want to say it's 5% for a win and maybe like 2 or 3 for a loss, something like that.
I believe it's 3 for a loss and 5 for a win is what I was getting.
There we go. Now you know.
But I didn't have the Leviathan Ghost on, which I have heard rumors that it provides a little more.
I was going to ask you this because you're a numbers guy. If it was true, I've been wearing it.
I don't have it, so I can't check it myself, unfortunately.
Well, if you're not wearing it and I'm wearing it, and we're both getting the same numbers. It must not be enough to matter.
every bit of it was lies.
Yeah, lies. They just want us to take our ghosts off so we don't have sparrow perks. It's a conspiracy.
Who needs fast summon sparrows? Not me. I do it the old-fashioned way.
I walk everywhere because I need the exercise.
It's like every planet is Mercury for you.
That's right. Oh my God. It makes me want to throw up.
Terrible.
Jeez. So also they've got some known issues in Season of Opulence. Have you noticed this problem? There's a Crucible invisibility. Have you seen this guy? I had this happen in a match and was like, why is this guy still invisible? I can't find him anywhere.
Would be surprised if anybody had not seen this happen. I have had it happen in several of my games. It's happened to me where my entire character has been invisible. I've had my guns be invisible.
Yeah.
It has not been as bad recently, meaning like the last, few days or so. But right after that last patch, it was pretty brutal.
This was happening to a friend of mine, Mitch, and it was like going through first his like gun was invisible, then his gun appeared and his hands were invisible, which was really funny. And then I think his hands were there, but his gun wasn't there. Like really strange stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on in that code. That funky code.
Seriously,
man.
It's like what even did they change? And I know obviously software development is, especially game development, is a complex web.
Of course.
But what was it that they changed that made it to where people were invisible in the Crucible?
Anytime stuff like this happens, like when the blind well got broken a couple weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, like what is the string of code that led to this on a like unrelated problem to occur? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's just, it kind of makes me laugh. Like, I hate that something happened and they have to go and find an issue, but it's just kind of like funny that it's that sensitive, just one wrong thing and everything breaks.
It's like a house of cards. They like fix the fabric on a hunter's cloak and it destroys blind well.
Right.
Like, well,
right.
I don't know how those two things are linked, but
yeah,
I guess they are.
They, they fix Prometheus lens and Eris spawns in the tower. Like, What?
Well, all right, I'll take it. She's coming back anyway, so
Yeah, I wonder if she'll be a vendor or just like a character that shows up.
I bet she'll be a vendor. I mean, every character that we've had introduced except for Aldrin has been a vendor, right? Like
That's true.
Petra and the Queen and Spider. So
yeah, well, Queen's not quite a vendor, but she was around for stuff. Yeah. You could go.
I didn't talk to her because I'm lazy and I didn't do any of that stuff. But I saw her a couple times.
Yeah. Do you think that I mean, they did mention there is a character that has not been revealed for the expansion. Do you think we'll get any surprises or any, like, you got any predictions or guesses on
for a character that has not been revealed?
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be Aldrin because I think that'd be too easy. I feel like the Exo Stranger is probably.
Oh my gosh, that would blow minds if it was the Exo
they've been notoriously quiet, and the whole thing is like stuff from our past is coming back.
Right.
And I feel like she fits that bill pretty well.
Oh wow.
But it might just be wishful thinking.
No, I mean that's a great guess. Like that's what I'm fishing for here. I didn't even think about that, man. And she was teased in some of the last Queen's dialogue that we got. So
well, fingers crossed. I will take congratulations publicly if it turns out that she's a secret character.
If she shows up, I will give you public props and maybe a present. I don't know.
Perfect.
So I'll be super excited and I'll be like, it's all thanks to Mercules. Okay. Let's talk movie of the week. We've got another solo Riven, but this time only one floor. Very impressive.
Extremely impressive.
People who do things like this make me feel really bad about my capabilities in video games. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Riven, I'm not a PvE guy, so I just stare at it from distance and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but that apparently is extremely impressive.
That looks cool.
Yeah, I can't do that, so I'll give it
now. One thing maybe you can weigh your opinion on was this honorable mention, a guitar rendition of Riven's Last Array. Did you check that out?
Second only in Destiny metal covers to probably the Sepix Perfected metal cover from D1, which I think will always hold the crown as the greatest metal cover of Destiny history.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This one definitely holds a candle to it. I would love to see more of the Destiny score, like if they could do more redux, and put them in the game for different stuff. I would enjoy that. More rock or metal renditions,
What about when they did Sparrow Racing League and they had that like reggae dubstep version that came in?
I'll take it.
Do you remember that? Yeah,
I'll take it.
Even that, it was like so weird. I was like, this doesn't fit with Destiny at all, but I like it. And it makes me race harder when I hear it. All right,
I'm into it. I'm definitely into it. I love when they just take something that's kind of outside of their normal style and mix it up. It's fun.
Yeah, I bet it's just musicians that are fans of Destiny are like, hey, let me throw something in here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talented new musicians that play this game too. But yeah, go check these both out. But I really was a fan of this very talented community member doing a metal cover of Riven's Last Array. It's he does every part and kind of layers it. It's pretty sweet. He shreds. Nice. Next up, if you missed it, there were some what do they call them? Incentives for the Guardian Con charity stream that Bungie participated in. And a couple of those were for DimG to get some tats, get some nice ink. And he has followed through on those, and he's got some links to the posts on Twitter that are pretty cool. What'd you think of the new ink he got?
I was actually really impressed with how clean it was. I don't know. I mean, I don't have any tattoos myself, so I can't I don't feel like I can really super judge, but the picture he showed, I was like, holy shit, that unbroken tattoo looked like real clean.
It's crisp. I can tell you as someone who has friends that are tattoo artists, and I have some ink myself. Line work is like where the men are separated from the boys, and does them good looking ink for sure.
Yeah. And then the other one is slightly less crisp, but it's also supposed to be because Shaq drew it for him. So
I love that he chose that particular metal. It's so funny. I made
his grandkids are going to ask him like, Granddad, why do you have a smiley face on your arm?
What kid wrote that on your arm, Dad?
Yeah.
Some granddad?
Well, children back in the early 21st century.
That's awesome. But yeah, congrats on all the community for forcing Dimji to get some tattoos that he probably already wanted.
Yeah, it was just an excuse for him. He was already going to get those.
I wonder if he was able to like submit an expense report for that.
I 100% guarantee that he was able to submit an expense report for that.
to the Bungie Foundation or something. That's one way to get free tattoos.
Yeah, like I said, he picked the 2 tattoos he wanted, and he set a goal that he knew they were going to hit. And
there you go. Love it. I don't have any. I don't know. I've thought about getting a Destiny tattoo. So I have 2 tattoos, and I've also always made it a point, like whatever I've chosen to put on my body, like had a lot of significant meaning. And of course, you know, being involved in Destiny for so long in the Destiny community, like I've definitely considered getting something, but I just haven't hit on what it would be yet. I don't know. I will take suggestions if you're listening of what Destiny tattoo I should get. What would you get, Merc, if you were going to put ink on? What Destiny tattoo would you get?
If I were to get a Destiny tattoo, I honestly don't know. I would probably have to think about that.
Would you get like the typical like eyes up Guardian with a ghost?
Oh, nah, I don't think the like text tattoo would be the thing I would go for. Although I did see Sarah Daniels got that tattoo, and I did like it. I think it looks good on her, but I don't think
it looks good
really
in the
what I would
right
do.
circumstance. It's not what I would get. I'm not poking fun at anyone in particular.
No, I would think that I would probably do like something on the shoulder, some type of emblem or something that had a special connection to me. But I don't really know if I have anything right now. That we might have to come back to that at the end of the episode. I might have to think about that a little bit.
We have a little time to think about it and see if you have anything that sparks.
You know what? I'll get my my KD tattooed on me.
Oh Lord, I hope it's good, man. Mine's bad. I don't want mine on.
I'll throw that 2.0 up.
There you go. 2.0.
I wouldn't actually do that, so we all know. That's
that's real try-hardy, bro. Not gonna lie.
Toolish thing I could think of, but that's why I thought it was funny. Nah, I don't know. I'd really have to think about that. I'd have to find some emblem or something that really meant something to me,
right?
Before I'd stick it on my body. Considering I don't have any other tattoos at all.
Yeah, get that Massive Breakdowns logo, man.
That would be probably the most likely thing if it had anything actually to do. Well, I guess it's kind of like the Clovis Bray logo is what we modeled it off of.
Oh, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, the B is the same as the Bray B. Maybe something like that. I don't know. Like I said, come back to me. I'll think of something in the next hour.
We'll think about it a little bit. We're going to talk real quick about Solstice of Heroes and what you can expect there. So it's going to start July 30th and run through August 27th. So we've got about 4 weeks, it looks, to do your Solstice. I think that was the same last year. I'm pretty sure what I did was like one armor set on each Guardian per week last year, I think is what I did. Mm-hmm. And then finished like last week or the week before, something like that. But we've got, as expected, a kind of cool mechanic. Each day the event will feature one of the 3 elements, Solar Arc and Void. Elemental kills will award you with elemental orbs. Picking them up will let you complete objectives to upgrade your armor. You can create whatever orbs you need for the objectives you're working to achieve. And you can also collect 30 orbs that match the daily element to apply an elemental buff for a brief time. So let's talk about what these buffs do. We've got the solar elemental buff. If you equip that subclass in those weapons, you'll generate the orbs. While you're empowered, Guardians emit a burning wave of energy that damages anything around them. Pretty cool. Void elemental buff allows you to crouch while empowered, and you'll become invisible, gain true sight, plus enhance ability regeneration. I think that one sounds like the most fun.
That one sounds super dirty in PvP.
Yeah, which there's some clarification coming up on that. But last, we're going to have the Arc empowerment that allows you to have enhanced speed and deal greater melee and sword damage. Now that I want to put on with like a Striker Titan and those cool exotic arms that allow you to guard with swords forever and ever.
Yeah, that's probably the only time anybody will ever use those.
I was trying to play with the other night just because I had them, and I was like, I'm going to put on a sword. And I finally got some heavy, and I was just running out. I ran out into like the opponent's zone, and there were like 4 guys around me just shooting my sword, and I was just pushing towards them. And I never got to actually stab anybody because they killed me. But I never ran out of ammo, so I had that going for me, which was nice.
So it's like a best of a bad situation. I died, but I still had ammo when I died. So.
Yep, so I left them some heavy. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Good job, guys.
Maybe not the best strategy.
Yeah, but they do mention this year, have no fear, these buffs will not be active in competitive or Gambit Prime. Now, they don't mention regular Gambit or quick play or any of that stuff, so it sounds like we'll be able to have some fun in those activities at least.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, competitive, it's definitely a good idea. They're not active in competitive. Gambit Prime, as much as they try to make it, Gambit Prime is not like a super sweaty competitive version of Gambit. Like when they initially announced Gambit Prime, I thought it was going to be like Gambit Trials. I thought it was going to be active like on the weekend, and it was going to be like, I thought it was going to be a lot different than it is. It's basically just Gambit that's one round with some different mechanics. So, I mean, I think they could have even been active in Gambit Prime, and it probably would have been fine.
I guess because there is a title and triumphs associated with it, they don't want to make it, too crazy. I don't know. That would definitely make it give people some advantages on completing those that other people might not have had. But hey, that's what they chose to do, and that's what we're going to have. I'm excited to play around with these little buffs. They sound like a lot of fun. Even in, in-game activities, if these are working, like raids, Shattered Throne, stuff like this, they may be fun to go in and play around with and do some stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. I think
that Arc Elemental buff is going to help the people who are trying to do the Riven things. I think they'll be able to use that to get maybe some faster kills or easier kills or something like that.
Yeah, no doubt. So we get a mention of combat meditations. Eva and Ikora have created a new ritual for you to hone your skills. You'll be going to an entirely new area called the European Aerial Zone to take on Hive, Cabal, or fallen enemies. This is a new 3-player matchmade activity that can be launched from the Tower of the Director. Essentially, this looks like big floating chunks of land. It's almost like a European Dead Zone version of the Endless Forest or whatever.
It's that Avatar shit, dude. That's what it is. A bunch of floating rocks and vines and stuff.
Yeah.
It's all about that Avatar life.
I love it. So where's our Avatar dragons that we can bond with?
Little Ghost. We just sit on top of Ghost and he flies us around.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine how fun that would be? Might hurt your butt though.
I can. Yeah, well, you get the beach ball Ghost, right?
There you go. Yeah. He's a little more squishy.
Yeah.
Why can't we just stick our Ghost as an engine, power source in a Sparrow, and he just take off for us?
I think Ghost would probably not appreciate being used as a battery, basically, as a motor.
Hey, worst case scenario, okay. Light powered, if that's what we got to do.
He likes to pretend he has more dignity than that.
Yeah. So the goal in this activity is to defeat as many mini bosses as possible before time expires. When your time runs out, you'll face off against the final boss. Once the boss is defeated, you'll set out across the European Aerial Zone in search of treasure chests. The more mini bosses you defeat, the more treasure will await you. So this really does seem like a new Haunted Forest-esque activity, which I'm cool with because I had a ton of fun in the Haunted Forest last year. So I can deal with
the
another.
stuff they've done with the Infinite Forest has been some of the best like limited time activities that we've had.
Yeah,
so far. So,
I like
and this
them a lot.
one, it's nice that it's a change of scenery.
Yeah, I think that's definitely helpful that, it's a little bit different and, they're putting some effort into it. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. The chests contain solstice packages that you can open with solstice key fragments earned by completing any activity during the Solstice of Heroes. Consider them similar to Essence of Dawning. So they mentioned in the packages you can get rare and legendary gear, enhancement cores, and materials. Once you earn the legendary Solstice armor, they'll also reward you with additional armor, so you can hunt for roles with enhanced perks. You can collect all of the Solstice legendary armor sets on 3 classes, and you'll get access to the EV-37 Void Streak Sparrow. What do you think of the Sparrow, man? I don't know if this is enough. I don't know if this is as good as the ship last year.
It's not, because nobody can tell what my Sparrow is when I'm riding it around.
Right.
Like, that's the thing about the ship, is the ship, everybody has to look at it when we're in orbit.
Yeah.
And they have to see it when we're flying in. Yeah. Like, I hope there's also like an emblem associated with it or something like that I can show.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm still going to try to do it. I'm probably not going to try as hard as I did for the ship. Because the Sparrow, I mean, a Sparrow's a Sparrow. Like, they're all right.
I'm probably more likely to do all this because I want the armor 2.0 for all of my Guardians going in.
For sure. I mean, the way I look at it is like, if something is really, really hard, whatever the cosmetic reward is, I want other people to have to look at it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's what I want. I want an emblem or an armor ornament that's like so flashy that they can see it in PvP, or like a ship. Like, that's what I want. Like, stuff like sparrows and guns is more for me, right? Like, nobody can tell what ornament I have on my gun. Nobody can really tell what sparrow I'm riding. That's more my stuff. Yeah. So those things are like just aesthetic choices as opposed to, anything else.
I do like that the legendary armor sets are really flashy, and they show off, they've got a GIF of the 3 different levels of the sets. And then, of course, there are also, what do they call them this year? They call them armor glows. They give you that like holographic projection, and those are pretty cool too.
And the glows are available after Solstice, which they weren't last year.
Yeah,
so that's pretty dope. I mean, that's probably what I'm going to be going for, is like getting a full set on each one, like you said, for the 2.0 stuff, and then stacking those glows, because those glows are impressive looking.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. And I think last year, like, I didn't really mess with the glows at all because they were limited. And I'm like, why am I spending any time or materials on this when it's going to be gone in like 2 weeks, Yeah.
And then the joke was on us because all the armor ended up being gone in 2 weeks anyway. So
Right. But I like how they make them super flashy, and they'll be obvious, like that you put in the time and you grab the thing and you got the glows and you can look really, really chic with your awesome stuff. But they mentioned, so the way this works, you'll go from a drained uncommon state to a renewed rare state to a majestic legendary set. To upgrade the armor, you'll complete a variety of objectives on each piece before advancing to the next set. Then there will be a final set of objectives available to unlock the Masterwork version. So you're looking at basically 4 sets of objectives to get through to like the best class, armor that you can pick up. And then of course there's also the armor glows. They mentioned there's not going to be an event engram this year, so you'll be able to purchase every single item using silver and bright dust. They say all Eververse items will be available for bright dust at some point during the event. So I appreciate that I'm not going to have to rely on just a random loot box thing. I mean, it pretty much seems at this point loot boxes are just dead in Destiny 2.
Well, as they should be. I mean, I think any consumer-focused game company knows that loot boxes are on the way out. I mean, it's only a matter of time until there's actual legislature against them.
Right.
So the movement away from loot boxes is as self-serving as it is beneficial to the community, which is good.
Yeah, it's definitely smart that they get ahead of it and, you know, work that out of the economy, and it's better for the player. You know, that you're able, I mean, I've been asking for so long, just like give us a way to either use in-game currency or just buy what we want. Now, I think there's some fine tuning on pricing on some stuff, but I think we're going in a better direction on Eververse.
My thing is I honestly just want them to do away with like the rotating stock and just like stick everything she has for the season in there.
Stick it all in there.
For sale with silver and for sale with bright dust. Let me burn through all my bright dust and then spend silver on the rest of it. Like that's what I want. Like I hate having to check her inventory every single week, and I know I totally understand why they do it, but I hate having to check her inventory every single week. I'm like, I literally want to spend money on this stuff. Please stop making me check back every single week so I can give you my $7. Like
I know. I mean, this week they had like 2 things for sale that for probably, I don't know, past 3 weeks or so, like you could only get previously with silver. And I was happy to see that I could buy them with bright dust, but also annoyed because I could have I almost spent the money thinking that those were things I could only almost buy with silver. And I was like holding off for whatever reason. I was like, oh, so the whole season's going to be a bait and switch for me to see if I can buy it or not. You know what I mean?
Right. Like it would be better if it came up as bright dust first and then silver second.
That stuff just rubs me the wrong way. I'm going to find a reason to complain about it one way or another.
Dude, I don't even mind. It's just like, make it easier for me to spend money and don't make it feel shitty. Like I bought the Suros regime ornament last season and literally I bought it Monday night and the next day it was being sold for bright dust. And I was like, I just paid $7 for this ornament. And I could have gotten it for free. And like that stuff rubs me the wrong way. It's like, just list everything in the store. Show me the silver price. Show me the bright dust price. Let me pay whatever I want. Yeah.
And I mean, like, if there's a bunch of stuff, it really seems like this season they're trying to get us to burn through our bright dust. And I'm wondering if maybe we see a change like that after they see people's like supply diminish. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think there's that many people who have like massive stores of 10K, 20K bright dust. I mean, maybe there are, and then the most hardcore, the hardcore. But like I feel like the majority of people who buy the cosmetic items from the store, like kind of even more casual players who just like pop in and they're like, oh, that looks cool. $7. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. And they just like throw the money.
Well, I think because they've given everybody the heads up, like, hey, shred all your stuff that gives you bright dust because, you know, it's going to be a different currency system next season, like shaders and all that stuff. They probably want people to like do that, you know, give it like, so that they're fair with people, like saying, hey, you can get this bright dust, but do it now or it's going to go away. So then you have a big store of it and go through and give you a bunch of reasons to spend it. So that if you had a big store of it, like you're cleaned out pretty much as quick as they can get you to. So you actually have to spend money or earn it somehow, you know.
Which is why I'm avoiding spending bright dust on anything. I'm going to have as much damn bright dust as I can.
I'm trying to keep I have about 30K right now and I'm trying to keep that bank account healthy. You know what I mean?
You got double what I have. I got up to like 15K and I was like, ooh, I'm rich. I'm rich now. And I spent like 2,000 of it on ornaments because I was like, I kind of want those ornaments though.
I just spent like 3 or 4K of bright dust today on the lore emote and the syntheseps ornament.
The syntheseps one I had to grab. That was one that I was looking at it and I was like, I'm gonna pay real money for this, but I know it's gonna be here for bright dust eventually, so I'm gonna wait. That was one of the only ones
so I
that I
waited,
did that.
and I'm glad.
I'm probably about to buy the truth ornament though, just for real money. I'm tired of waiting. I just want to put it on my truth.
Yeah, truth. So going back, what do you think about the cosmetic items for the event? These are pretty funny. I like how they made it cheeky, you know.
Yeah, I mean it's very obviously summer themed, right? Like you've got a little. I look at it like looks like a little jet ski, and then the other one looks like what's called a Chris Craft, which is like an old school wooden boat that's very expensive, and they're very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ghosts are pretty funny: beach ball ghost, life ring ghost, or inflatable tube ghost, and a sunglasses ghost with seriously just one sunglass lens on.
I
which
love
I think
that.
is funny.
Yeah, I like how they made them really funny. Those are cool.
Yeah, I mean, these are the type of aesthetic things that are good. Like this stuff makes sense that it's being sold in Eververse, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It totally has no bearing on the game at all. It's just silly. It's just fun. I was actually having this conversation with someone earlier, but like, what bothers me is when they make stuff to sell in Eververse that like really looks like it's connected to the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, for example, Saint 14's ship, like that, I really felt like should have been an in-game reward. But
all
this
of them,
stuff,
I mean,
like
they've had one for Ikora that was in
for
the
Anna
Eververse.
Bray and for Zavala, like
Osiris. Like
that stuff bothers me.
All those major NPCs, but they're all cosmetic stuff, and like those could have been really awesome quest rewards or something. You know?
Yeah, like Sagira Shell came to us because we did something, and like there's a lot of stuff in the game that I feel like was given to Eververse when it would have been a much better way to drive engagement if you had put it as like a reward for doing some type of activity.
Yeah. This really like I talked about this a lot when Destiny 2 had first come out and during some of those early expansions when we were not getting like very healthy quest rewards, and like there was a ton of Eververse stuff that was obviously like really cool in-game stuff, but it was all just in the Eververse, and that drove me nuts. It's not quite as bad now, but there's still stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's gotten a lot better. I mean, this is obviously, you know, Eververse accumulated stuff, right? But like my thing was I wish that all the like paint schemes and stuff for ships and things like that, I wish those were sold at Eververse, but they were ornaments for like base ship models, and you had to like buy the ship model from Amanda Holiday, right? Like same thing with Sparrows. Like I wish they would involve like, the other vendors a little bit.
Basically like Armor 2.0 for ships, like a transmog, or like, so you'd have ornaments for ships based on, because you know everybody calls them reskins, but they'll take a certain ship type and then they'll make a ship out of it, you know, to look a certain way.
And the way I look at it is it's not a reskin if it's an ornament, because it's meant to go on that ship, right? And like not only that, but we would, you know, solve the collections issue where like you would just have one base model of every ship type, and then, you know, Amanda Holiday would sell you that for 50,000 glimmer or something. Talk about you know, an economy sink in there. Use that, and then, you know, she sells you the Sparrow that's just white, and she sells you the ship that's just white, and then you go to Tess, and she's got a whole bunch of different paint schemes for it that you can just like buy and slap on there. And like I feel like that would have been a much cooler use and like more in universe. And same thing with ghost shells. Like I kind of wish like all the exotic ghost shells came from Ikora or something. Like we have so many vendors sitting
definitely
here just getting no use at all.
Like there's so many ghost shells, and I have a bunch that I don't want to dismantle or get out of my inventory because of the perk combinations. But it would be nice if, you know, I could get the perk sets that I wanted out of like a base ghost shell, right? This is the same exact argument. We're talking about armor here. Get what you want on it and then be able to put, you know, a preferred cosmetic design on it. Like it would be really smart if they apply this principle to a lot of the items that we're talking about in Destiny 2.
Straight up, it should go to everything. Like ships, ghost, armor, sparrows, weapons, all of it should follow this Armor 2.0, where like you find a base piece, there's a bunch of ornaments for it so you can change it to be what you want, but then every single perk slot is just a mod, right? Yeah. And like you get the mods from various things, like maybe vendors, maybe the gunsmith sells weapon mods, maybe Ikora sells ghost mods, maybe Amanda sells ship and sparrow mods. And then also like the really sought after mods like come from in-game content, right? So like, you know, Kill Clip
like
comes
we have
from
with the
Nightfalls
raids
or something like that.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Man, that'd be spectacular. That'd be spectacular.
Yeah.
You know,
and there's still a chase and a little bit of RNG, but it feels so much more impressive because you're building it yourself instead of like praying for a drop.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I like it a lot, man. Maybe if, you know, if the system goes well and it's manageable, you know, maybe we'll see some stuff like that. That'd be great.
I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Hey, what do you think about these emotes that we have for the event?
They're okay. They're not my favorite emotes. I've already found my love emote, which is the Riker sit, where he like steps over the back of the chair and sits down.
That's your jam,
from Star Trek. Yeah, so that was that's like my emote. Like I use that 100% of the time for 100% of circumstances that require an emote. I use that. I had an emote like that in D1 as well, which was the no finger wag.
Mm-hmm.
So I always end up finding one emote that I just like completely fall in love with, and then I use nothing but that emote until the next one comes along. So right now I'm not sold on any of those emotes, but it's okay because I already paid money for the one that they had.
I like the Titan one. It's kind of cool. I don't know if it's original or if it like goes to some kind of, you know, pop culture thing. I don't know about, but I think it looks cool. It's like you're summoning some kind of energy. The Hunter one's kind of fun. Warlock one's kind of, it's okay. Not as good. But they finish up mentioning there's going to be 2 additional moments of triumph available during the Solstice of Hero event. They'll also be making Gambit available to all players during the Solstice. So there's that to look forward to.
Nice.
So that's Solstice. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Great way to wrap up the summer and head into the fall. And I think a lot of people are having a good time with this season. You know, I've seen a lot of players come back that had been on break with Season of the Drifter. So this should be a fun way, you know, for people to have something else to do during this season and wrap it up.
Yeah, I think Black Armory and Season of Opulence have been exceptional as far as expansions go. Black Armory had some road bumps that it hit very early on with the rollout of content, but the actual content itself, once you got into it, was great. The lore was great. Season of the Drifter had some interesting moments, but I didn't actually particularly like the season. I didn't really like Gambit Prime. I despise the Reckoning. But Season of Opulence has just knocked it out of the park, really. I think the only place that Destiny has faltered in year 2 is Crucible, which has been basically ignored for 11 months now, or 10 months.
And they've acknowledged as much, I suppose.
Yeah, it was a miscalculation. I think I thought they believed that they could focus entirely on one, segment of the game and it would hold people over. But yeah, like you said, they've acknowledged it and they know going into this next season that they're going to have to do some other things. But I think if they can nail down a better feeling Crucible in year 3, I don't know if we're going to have seen a higher point in Destiny. And maybe that's just optimism.
Absolutely.
But, yeah. I mean, I'm enjoying playing.
If they bring something to the table, for the Crucible, then we'll definitely be at a high point. I think I agree.
Yeah.
Very analogous to Destiny 1 year 3.
Yeah. Well, year 3 is a bunch of lessons learned from the previous 2 years, and they've done a pretty good job of actually learning those lessons as opposed to, just pushing them aside.
Things that happen.
Yeah.
Well, now we've gotten through the news, let me ask you, Merc, as our guest, how was your reset, man?
It's been pretty great so far. I've been, like I said, playing a decent amount of Crucible, been trying to get the moments of triumph done, at least as many of them as I can. Been trying to get those tributes discounted a little bit.
Yeah.
Still working on Lumina. I've been super lazy about doing that, so I'm not quite there. Yeah, it is. And I've got my bad juju and everything, and I've got Rose, so I'm like not pushing really, really hard to try to get through it. I've got like a bunch of pokers in the fire, so to speak, right? Like I'm working on Revoker, and I'm working on I'm just working on a ton of stuff, man. My quest page and my bounties page are just like all the way filled up. So I'm just hanging out. I'm not really feeling stressed to do anything right at this exact moment, which is a good feeling. And I log on and I'm like, what do I want to play today? And I look at my stuff and I'm like, that sounds fun, and I do it. So I'm about as happy as I can be.
There's like a number of triumphs and different title stuff I'm working towards. And so I just kind of try to jump on, knock out the 4 daily Callus discount bounties as often as I can. I'm at like, I want to say 48% right now. I'm getting there.
Way higher than me. I think I'm in the low 20s.
It's
I have
a grind.
not been doing them religiously.
Yeah, some of them are a little grindy, but I've tried to knock them out. I think there's like 3 or 4 days that I've missed so far, but yeah, just kind of working a little at a time towards stuff. And I just, like you jump on every day, see what's hot, what I can get into, what's fun, and just kind of do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. At some point this month coming up, though, we've got to start working on our flawless Crown of Sorrows run. So I've got that grind to look forward to.
I've never completed a flawless raid ever, and I don't know if that's in the stars for me. Not that I don't think I could do it. I'm fairly positive I could do it.
The tricky thing is just getting a team together to do it, and like putting in the practice, and like just getting people committed to it is the hardest part.
Yeah. And like, I don't have that. I don't have that in my soul to commit to a PvE thing to that extent. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I can do Nightfalls, and I can do a raid a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I think the most I've ever done a raid is I did Eater of Worlds like 7 times. That's the most I've ever done a raid. Like, I don't think I've done any raid other than that one more than, that's not true. I did King's Fall and Wrath of the Machine a fair amount.
Yeah.
Back in D1. But in D2, I think Eater of Worlds has been the most I've done a raid. And it's because it was so easy and so quick.
Yeah. Well, talking about raids, man, this is something that came up, really with the conversation that has gone on, especially about crossplay coming up. I guess is what sparked it. But for some reason, like a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, there was this whole conversation about raid matchmaking. And should it be in Destiny? This comes up at least once a year, I feel like, Yeah. So I thought it'd be a fun thing to talk about, and I just threw up a tweet and said, "Hey, let's talk about this." And who is for it? Because I am not for raid matchmaking, but I want to hear the other side of the story. So you have voiced that you feel that this is a good thing to have in Destiny 2, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I'm 100% for raid matchmaking. Actually, when I was at Bungie, this was something that I tried to push for. Not necessarily in the current way raids work. Like, if I were to try to implement some type of raid matchmaking, I would like it to be checkpoint based. So you would matchmake for a checkpoint in the raid, right? And then once you had cleared that checkpoint, it would allow you to matchmake for the next checkpoint in the raid. And
each week, or just overall?
No, just overall. Like it would reset at the end of the week, right?
Okay.
As the normal raid resets work.
I got
right?
you.
But
so
like
if you had so let's give a easy example, Vaulted Glass, right? So if you had gotten up to Gorgons that week for Vault, you could matchmake for a Gorgons checkpoint.
Yeah. And then, at the end of Gorgons, if you want to drop out, you just drop out. And, if the rest of the people want to if they want to continue, then they would just enter matchmaking for the next section, right?
Or it could
what it would allow people to do,
the matchmaking mode, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what it would do is it would allow people to access the raid in like bite-sized content. And I know the biggest argument against it is like, well, no match-made team is ever going to be able to beat the raid. And it's like, yeah, that's probably true. But it allows people to dip their toes in, and when they see how fun it is and how cool it is and how beautiful it is, they're that much more likely to try to find a team on their own. And the reason I believe that is because that's what happened with me in Halo when I had never played a multiplayer game before. Never, ever played multiplayer before. Because I didn't want to have to deal with going out and finding a server and all of that shit that came with it. For whatever reason, I was younger back then. I just didn't want to deal with it, right? But Halo had matchmaking.
Yeah.
And if I'm not sure if you read this article that came out on Polygon the other day, but it was one of the UR guys, one of the user research guys who worked on Halo 2, and said it was the biggest mistake of his career, but he tried to kill matchmaking in Halo 2.
Oh, man.
Because during their user research, all of the same feedback that we hear from players about matchmaking will never work for raids, no one will ever succeed, it won't be a fun experience. All that same feedback was given to multiplayer matchmaking. They said it'll be toxic, it won't be fun, players won't enjoy playing with each other, they won't like random games, and he tried as hard as he could to kill it. And Bungie basically said, no, we're not doing that, like, we're definitely keeping matchmaking. And they went through with it. And it ended up completely changing the way that multiplayer games are played. It was a revolution, right? And I don't think raid matchmaking would be on that level because raiding is a much smaller subsection of gaming.
Right.
But I do think that it would allow people to dip their toes in and be like, holy crap, this is actually really cool. Yeah, we failed, but, you know, it's motivated me to actually try to find my own group, or it's motivated me to keep playing, or it's motivated me to keep trying. And especially when you break it up into bite-sized chunks, like just a checkpoint, your time investment is so much less that
I feel like
you don't have to sit there for 8 hours.
When they released the Leviathan raid, right, with Destiny 2 proper, like, I feel like it was made with that in mind. Something like that. You know, it was definitely somebody, I want to say it was a guest I had on once, but they mentioned like that, you know, essentially Leviathan was like created with guided games in mind. And when I thought about it, I was like, you know, that makes a lot of sense because with the encounters like changing every week, you know, the rotation and stuff like that, like it just made it more like bite-sized in a way. So I feel like there'd have to be some design in mind for them to do this.
Well, I mean, with the checkpoint system that they have, there's already like dead points, right? Like you run through an environment.
Yeah, you have encounters.
It's basically there's all encounters, right? You would just have, and this is not by any stretch of the imagination simple. I'm saying it like it's simple. I know on the back end exactly. I don't know exactly. I know how much work would go into it, and it's an immense amount, right? But like, you basically would just drop people in, like, okay, this team just completed, you know, the first encounter of Last Wish, and 2 people left. Okay, well, while they're running through the section in the next encounter of Last Wish, the matchmaking is working in the background, and it drops 2 more people in. And they try to do it, and like when someone bounces out, the matchmaking just goes back to work, and on their next wipe, it puts another person in. Right. And like, it would be extremely complicated, immensely complicated, but I feel like it would 100% be worth it. And yeah, matchmade teams would fail all the freaking time. But at the same point in time, the worst thing Bungie did was underestimate players' intelligence when they first designed strikes. That's why every single strike boss we had in vanilla D1 was a bullet sponge and nothing else. There were no mechanics. Like, players, it's difficult the first couple of times, but stuff becomes disseminated throughout the population and knowledge spreads. And like we're seeing right now, even with randoms in Menagerie, which is in no way a difficult or complex process, randoms are picking it up very easily and blowing through it really, really fast, especially at the higher levels. And if they want to separate it like they did with Menagerie into a heroic, which has no matchmaking and actually has super challenging mechanics, and a normal, which maybe has slightly dumbed down mechanics that does have matchmaking, I'd be 100% for that too. Let heroic be the true.
So that was
experience.
that was my next like point that I wanted to riff on your idea is, you know, with heroic mode and even challenge mode done for in raids in Destiny 2, I think that for matchmaking to make sense, like there would need to be the simpler versions like we used to have in D1 of the raid, right? And then your heroic versions that are like the true, you know, intent. So not dumbed down, but like, you know, the more complex, the more difficult version, and you would want like removed matchmaking so that you don't have like frustrating experiences for the more experienced players. And then you have something like for players to aspire to, right? Like you want people to aspire to build a team and to go in with the team, and like, because the in my opinion, the more desirable experience for a raid is like going in with a team that you're comfortable with and that you can take on a challenge with together, you know, and you're going to have more enjoyment playing that way than having to like parcel out encounters and, you know, deal with just a rotating random group of people that changes. And like that can get frustrating even in like LFG now. Like people will just randomly drop out. They'll get frustrated and leave. You've got to find people again. And, you know, that could be less frustrating if the game is matchmaking for you. But then also you have no ability to stipulate, okay, you know, we don't have any warlocks. We need a warlock, stuff like that. Well, right.
You know, I mean, it's the way I look at it is I'd much rather be failing at a raid than not playing the raid at all. And there's a subsection of the population that looks at it like, there's no matchmaking for this. I should go on LFG. But it's an insanely small percentage of the population. And I know what Bungie's worried is that matchmaking, the experience would be so bad that it would scare people off of raids permanently, right? But the way we look at it right now is I think it's like less than 5% of active players have completed the most recent raid. Mm-hmm. And the way I look at it is probably I'd be willing to bet that less than like 15% of active players have even tried the new raid, right? You throw matchmaking on that, probably 60-70% of players are going to try the raid. Even if half of those players get 100% scared off of it, they weren't doing the raid anyways. So there's a net no change, right? But if the other half of those players are like, yeah, this is fun, let's go on LFG, all it does is make things better for everyone.
I do want to see, like, accessibility isn't always the most important thing to me, but ultimately, I do want to see more people taking advantage of the activities in the game, right? Like, it's a loss if the studio is creating activities that aren't well played when a significant effort goes into them, you know, and raids are a great example of that, you know, because what happens is when those things are not taken advantage of, you like has happened with Heroic, like the proof's in the pudding. Like, why would we spend all this time designing, you know, heroic or challenge mode when less than 1% of the community uses it, right? Like, yeah. And I get that. It's unfortunate because I miss those heroic modes as a hardcore, if you will, raider. I miss those extra challenges, and going through that with my team. But if there's a way that we can get more players engaged in those activities and grow the population of players that enjoy them and have a chance to do them, even if they just do the raid one time, you know, that's at least them getting more value out of the game and the resources that the developer put into creating it, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I also look at it like, you know, you get more people interested in raiding, then when the raid race comes along, you get more people watching, which benefits the big raiders, which benefits Bungie because it's advertising. It's this like huge involvement cycle where the more people who try an activity, who enjoy the activity, who then watch the activity, who then read about the activity, who then write about the activity, right? And like it can become like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost, where it gets way bigger than it ever was before. And it's not because matchmaking put people in a position to succeed. It's because matchmaking put people in a position to try something in a way that wasn't necessarily as painful as I think some people are thinking it would be.
Yeah. I mean, you have a good case, and I try to be open-minded, so I'm definitely open to the idea. I think my reservations with raid matchmaking have been the concern that the experience can be so poor that players get turned off and they don't go into those things because you can't get players. I think some of the things that I see in LFG pickup groups will be worse in isolated cases than they are now, with players leaving because they don't like the team they're made with, because they have no agency to make decisions on, any factor of who they want to play with, whether that's class makeup, experience, power level, any of that. If you have no control over any of those things, you're going to have more teams fall apart. So the experience of the raid is going to be made worse by those factors and how people can just, people are selfish, and people are more selfish when they don't have any social ties to the people they're spending time with. So when you're in a group of strangers, you're going to do what's best for you most of the time. You're going to have people that are altruistic, or they're nice, or they're patient, and they have a lot of time, and thank God for those people, but they're few and far between. And so when you're going into a team and it's, you try it a few times, it's not working out, and people aren't communicating, or no one knows what's going on, it's going to be harder to get those players to stick together and complete the encounter. And my concern is new players going into that, inexperienced raiders, or people going into the raid for the first time, are going to get really turned off from that experience and may not utilize the feature any more than that. Because typically, I think a player that doesn't have the time to commit to finding a team, or they don't have the time to, put the time in to learning the encounters, in a serious way, like, they're not going to spend their time banging their head against the wall for 3 hours to try to complete a couple of encounters. They'll go do other things in the game and may say, the raids are great, but it's not worth my time matchmaking in with a bunch of people that can't make it work, and may just drop the idea of raiding altogether, when they may have had a better chance of an experience if they took a little time and found a community, or even an LFG group that fit what their needs were for their time, for, finding people that were Sherpas, doing this and that, doing all the things that have worked thus far in Destiny, and in ways that community have found to solve those problems, could diminish if there's raid matchmaking. And those are my concerns with it.
Well, I don't think raid matchmaking needs to exist in a bubble. I mean, we already have guided games, and it's been pretty much a failure for a number of reasons, mostly because it's been neglected almost entirely. And I think guided games has the foundation to be something that could be successful. I mean, the problem is, it's just the whole system is not. It hasn't been polished. It was in beta 2 years ago, and it's still in beta now. And I feel like they're just, taking the beta tag off to make it seem like it's not, but they're not making any changes to it. But, with a raid matchmaking system, you would give people the ability people who had already completed the raid, right? Give them the ability to match in as a teacher. Give people who have never completed the raid the ability to match in as a learner, right? And it would try to match, 4 learners with a teacher, or 5 learners with a teacher, or 4 learners with 2 teachers, or something like that, right? Like, there are a number of ways. You could have people who have completed it a couple of times, but don't want to be a teacher. You could have them match in as a certain thing. There's various ways, and I'm not trying to pretend like raid matchmaking is going to be the end all to beat all. It's going to be the solving thing. You could combine it with an in-game LFG, where there's a special spot in the tower where you can stand, where we have interactive emotes now, right? Well, you equip an emote that says, I'm looking to do a raid. And when someone holds X next to you, it makes them join your party, right? Like, there's a lot of things that can be combined with raid matchmaking. And I think the biggest issue that people have with raid matchmaking is they're looking at it like the success of raid matchmaking depends on whether or not these random groups can complete the encounter. I don't look at it like that. I don't expect them to be able to complete the encounter with raid matchmaking. They may be able to. It may be a possibility. What I look at the success of raid matchmaking as doing is getting them into the encounter and motivating them to use those outside resources to find a better group, to find a better family, to find a better clan. That's what I think the strongest benefit of matchmaking is that it enables them to dip their toes in without a huge time commitment and say, holy shit, this arena is beautiful. This puzzle is intriguing. Like, yeah, I couldn't do it with a bunch of Randies. No one was on their mics. We had 6 warlocks. I should try it with 2 warlocks, 2 titans, and 2 hunters, and people talking to each other. And then it motivates them to go use those resources to find a better group. I think the key to the raid matchmaking is to make the experience as painless as possible and to remove that fear of failure. And once you do that, they'll see, oh, this isn't as scary as I thought. Let me go find some people that I can do this with.
Well, you present some good points. I think we're kind of looking at it from two different philosophical perspectives. As you see it from the positives, and I'm seeing it from the negatives. And in reality, there's probably going to be a little bit of all of it, right? There's definitely going to be downsides, but the question is, is the upside worth it? And I think you present some good reasons why the upside could be worth it. And I think ultimately, if it gets more people into the activities, that can be a win, right? We can't control everybody's experience. That's just social, that's just how life is. I don't know how else to put it.
I mean, you look at matchmaking for multiplayer, and the things that people were worried about did come to fruition in some manners. Like toxicity is rampant in multiplayer games, and some people have such a bad experience that they're scared off. But I think the success of matchmaking in multiplayer was far overwhelming compared to the failures that it brought up.
Yeah.
And I think it would be similar with raiding. I do think you would have people who would have such a bad experience that they would never do it again. But at the same time, if those same people are never going to raid anyways, and if you have one person who has a bad experience and 3 people who are convinced to give it a shot, I think it's a net positive. And the only way we'd ever know whether it was a net positive was to give it a chance. But the number of people that are raiding right now is so low that, I don't think it would hurt the population, so to speak. I think at the very worst, it would, just keep the hardcore people doing what they're doing right now. But it's not like, 50% of players are doing Crown of Sorrows. It's a very small, and my worry is, of course, what everybody's worry is, which is the population drops to the point where it's no longer beneficial for Bungie to create raids.
Yeah. Right.
Like you spend a lot of development time and a lot of development money on an activity that 1% of the population plays. And like, that's the ultimate fear.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So it's a concern that I've thought about many times, And I mean, I think even with the numbers where they're at, like it shows a commitment to that activity and that philosophy of like what they want to deliver in content, and to those players that do it. I appreciate that they've done it thus far and kept it up, because it's a major reason I play the game. It would be tough for me to live in a Destiny without raids.
100%. I don't even do the raids that often. And it would still hurt me if the raids were gone.
Yeah.
Because I know how much they mean to some players, and because I still look at the raids as pinnacle content. And like in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm going to do Crown of Sorrow.
Yeah. I'm going to get
there.
Still an aspirational piece of content. Like,
exactly.
And that's a philosophy that they have mentioned and talked about publicly, like that they want there to be aspirational goals for players, like things that they work towards or plan to do or want to do, And I think that's part of what makes Destiny fun. Like there's always, or almost always, something to aspire to do.
Yeah. And, although not so much in PvP right now, but there still is. Bring trials back. That's what we need.
Yeah. Yeah, I could use it. You could use a big shot in the arm. Yeah. Well, great talk on that, man. I really appreciate your perspective on that stuff. You bring something unique to the table, and I wanted people to hear what you thought about it too. I talk on and on every week about stuff like this, so you need other viewpoints.
I love it, man. I mean, this was what I did at Bungie. I went out there and sat in, a conference room with 12 other people who cared about the game, and we talked about stuff like this. Like, every single day we did things like this, and it was the most fun 90 days that I've ever had. So every time I get to do it with with people in the Destiny community who care just as much about the game, it's, it brings me back, and I always love it.
That's cool, man. Maybe one day you'll get to go back. You think you would?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a long-term goal is I definitely want to go back out there. Like, my dream is to work for Bungie, and I got a taste of it for 90 days, but the circumstances just didn't make sense for me to move cross country at that current point in time for the position. So, I've taken steps in my current job to set myself up to hopefully in another couple years give it another shot and maybe be in a better position.
So that's a pretty big piece of aspirational content there.
Yeah, the biggest, because it's not a game anymore. It's actual real life. But
it's the big game.
That's what keeps you going, right? It's good to have goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in life we all have wants and desires and things to look forward to, and I think it's a great goal for you to work towards. I know that you would do an excellent job going back there.
I appreciate it.
Well, let's do some Derp Fam discourse here. Maybe you can weigh in on this, see what you have to think. So a few weeks ago, we had a listener, and Tripoly D, longtime listener, and he talked about difficulty in the game. He talked about how he felt, some activities, would be what you would expect from a normal difficulty level. And then you would get into things that, 10 delta above, like things would be super brutal and tanky to him. Going into in-game activities, like the difficulty has really been ramped up over Destiny 2 and things like that. And he wanted to know what we thought about that in general. So so we talked a little bit about it, and then one of our other listeners, R Velvet J, he said, I don't think you fully answered Polly's question. I heard it more around the issues of feeling powerful and having meaning surrounding max light, as opposed to just difficulty in the game, regardless of power level. Maybe you can revisit it and come at it from a different perspective. I would love to hear your opinions on that. So Polly, a quote from Polly, he said, one point I wanted to bring up is the level scaling of enemies versus guardians. I find it odd that enemies that are on level or 10 above are brutal and tanky, while when our guardians are over leveled in the other direction, it doesn't seem to be on par. Then the over leveling caps out at 50 anyways. I realize it is to keep content relevant, but the question becomes, why bother hitting max light if it doesn't make challenging content more manageable? So does this train of thought make sense to you? Have I conveyed?
Yeah, I guess I don't feel the same way. I feel like when I'm 50 levels over something, I absolutely slaughter everything. Mm-hmm. I feel like when I go into content that I'm 50 levels over, I just absolutely breeze through things. So I guess I'm kind of just in a little bit of disagreement with with that thesis, but also not everything allows you to over level 50. There are different over level caps set on different content, and the harder the content is, the less, like, the lower the over level cap is, at least, up until a certain point. And then once that content becomes much older, I think they reduce that, or they increase the over level cap, right?
Yeah.
So
I do find it interesting how they changed it compared to, say, Destiny 1. There used to be, I want to say it would be like between 10 and 20 was the most you could ever scale above enemies with it mattering. And they've increased that all the way up to 50. I'm sure it has diminishing returns, right? But they say, and the numbers should show, that up to 50 above for certain activities, you do more damage and should take less damage, I believe, as well. But I guess Polly's question, and I think he's coming at it from the perspective of a more casual player, who doesn't attack as much of the end game stuff. And when he's going into it, he's feeling pretty underpowered, as someone that's not necessarily keeping up with the power grind. But I think for him, I guess, so think of it this way, like when we're at the delta that an enemy is at. You know, that should be what feels normal for the game, right? Or like the intended level of difficulty. How powerful should you feel as you scale above that, I think is the question. Like, you feel like you're slaughtering everything. Even 50 above, like if I go in at max power now and I do something like Last Wish, it still feels like normal difficulty to me. Like I don't feel like I see significant enough power increases that I can just walk all over everything.
Well, you don't feel like your DPS phases are a lot more forgiving of mistakes due to the increase in damage? I mean, that's where I've noticed it most in raids. The ads might not necessarily be any easier, which I'll talk about in a second, but like my DPS phases when I go into raids when I'm over leveled are like a breeze, because
they can be easier, but there's still a cap on like what your expected like DPS still has to be. The overcap is 20 on that right now. You know, I don't know 100% what it is, and it might not be. Like, I haven't done the DPS testing in Last Wish. I don't know.
It might be that the overlevel cap isn't 50, or it might be that it is, and the delta just scales differently when you get over the top. I personally have always noticed that going over delta has made things easier. You know, I guess the question, or I guess the recommendation could be make it more noticeable. But I think they want to try to avoid people not doing the raid in the first season, waiting until the light level has been raised by 50, and then going back in the next season and it not being a challenge at all. Right?
Yeah,
like
you don't want
just being a joke.
Yeah, you don't want to make an activity just a total joke, right? Where you can just run through it and not have to do anything and spray your auto rifle and just kill everything in sight, right? Because, I mean, that might be novel for a minute, but it doesn't become interesting or fun if there's not a challenge, right?
Yeah, it trivializes things, which is unfortunate. And like, so I guess his thing is, why bother hitting max light if it doesn't make challenging content more manageable? In my opinion, it does. It just doesn't make it trivial, which I think was an intended design decision. And I do agree with that design decision. I don't think if you were to go into something 30 under, and then go into it at light, and then go into it 20 over, I think you would notice a difference between all three. I mean, at 30 under, the most difficult thing I've ever done in Destiny was when I was at Bungie and we had to playtest the initial campaign, and they want us to playtest it at different light levels. And I had to solo the entire campaign and all of the heroic adventures at 30 light under what was recommended. I spent, it must have been 2 hours on the Machinist, like trying to beat it. It was insane. And it was so much fun, honestly, because like I learned, you know, strategies, and I learned parts of her mechanics and attacks that like I never noticed when I played through it on my actual character, because I was at level and I just massacred it.
Yeah.
Right. So,
well, I guess so that might offer you like a perspective on some of the things that this player might run into, right? If he's going into like a mission or an adventure or a whatever kind of activity, like a forge or something, like, you know, and he's 20, 30 under and he's facing that level of difficulty, but he plays casually, and so there's a big time investment and gap into like getting of level. I think his point might be like that those deltas and those difficulties are really taking away from his enjoyment of the game as a player that plays that way. I can imagine that could get frustrating. And I think that his point was in his original email, I think it was to us, was that like it's becoming a turnoff because so many activities take advantage of the power deltas and different leveling that you have to go through to actually compete. So I guess point being, like, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, and I think this is what I brought up in the original, our original talk about it, is you can water things down, for lack of a better term, so that there's less delta scaling, right? So it's more accessible for players like that. But then you don't have much of an incentive to power up your Guardian or your gear. Like, you take the vertical, I guess it is, climb away, or the incentive for that vertical climb.
So here's my thing. I think they made a huge mistake in the move from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2 by removing heroic story missions as an option. So what I would like to see is every story mission given to us once at normal, whatever they think normal light level is, which usually any hardcore player is going to already be at when the story missions come out, right? Mm-hmm. And then I would like to see them offer a heroic option that's 30 light over that. And if you beat the entire campaign on their heroic options, you get like an emblem or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would do that. Personally, that would be the best case scenario for me coming in. It would be, I can choose to make this more difficult for myself, and I get a neat little aesthetic reward to show off at the end. Simultaneously, you don't have to worry about over-leveling the Guardians who have not been keeping up, right? Because you have a lower light option that if all they want to do is just play through the thing. We used to have heroic versions of every single PvE activity. And we don't have hardly heroic versions of anything now.
This may be super complicated, but how great would it be to select your power difficulty just when you start the campaign? Like,
and I mean, Halo had it. It had easy, normal, heroic, epic, or legendary.
And granted, right? That's like a kind of a different product, but if you could offer that and say, hey, all right, we're starting a campaign. Do you want to start at 750, 770, whatever, like offer different options. I mean, I would go in and just start it at a higher delta for fun, first of all, but for two, if it's going to give me better rewards, maybe drop gear at a higher scale above your power level or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and Nightfall does it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, clearly they have the systems in place. And I mean, the unfortunate thing is that that's just light level scaling. And it's not like, do you remember we used to have modifiers in D1?
Yeah.
Like heroic, epic, stuff like that. So there's normal, heroic, and epic. And like on epic, the enemies are more aggressive and more accurate and faster firing. And like, that's what I liked. Like, I like playing in smart enemies like that. Like,
yeah, it turned up the AI to 10,
Yeah, the enemies in standard like Destiny are the AI is pretty dumb, and like I don't really find it much of a challenge, even 10 light levels under.
The hardest they're AI trying is like enemies that can teleport.
yeah, and well, freaking Taken is like they were like, what's the worst thing we could ever do for any enemy ever? And they just made it the Taken. So, like I find that they're trying to straddle a line between the casual player who isn't keeping up with their light, who doesn't really want that much of a challenge, who kind of just wants to play through the content, and who doesn't find the light grind or deltas to be acceptable. And then someone like me who like, I want that challenge. I want myself to feel like I'm getting my ass kicked when I'm 30 light levels under. And they're trying to straddle that line, and that's an impossible line to straddle because there is no solution that's going to keep both of us happy as long as there's only one version of the activity.
Yeah, if there's only one version, then that's you have to, do what I feel has not worked well in Destiny 2, which is try to be all things to all people. You kind of have to pick some middle ground somewhere, and then somewhere on both ends of the spectrum, somebody's not happy, right?
Right.
Because either it gets boring or it's too hard, something,
Right. And the worst thing is if you go in the middle ground between someone like Paulie and myself, I'm not happy because it's too easy, and Paulie's not happy because it's too hard, and both of us are unhappy. Right.
Right.
Like you didn't even please one of us. Like both of us are upset with the content. You end up with Panoptes in the Curse of Osiris mission where the entire engagement is on rails and you don't do anything.
Yeah. That was a weird mission. It was really spectacular, but it didn't leave you feeling like you did much,
No. Curse of Osiris, I think, is the worst campaign they've ever made. Worse, probably even than the Dark Below.
Tough criticism. Well,
yeah.
Velvet and Polly, let us know what you think about that feedback. I mean, we can talk about this some more. It's a tough thing to kind of pick apart. But it's a great question. It's a great topic. It deserves some conversation. We're going to do, so DirtFam Discourse, if you want to send us an email, you can do that, destinyresetpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send us a speakpipe, speakpipe.com/destinyreset. And let us know if you've got a question about something we talked about on the show, or a comment on what we said, or if you want to give a shout out to something positive in the community, send us our way. We've got a shout out to a patron this week, Monkey Ops 53, new patron. Thanks for becoming a patron and supporting us. If you don't know what that is, go to patreon.com/destinyreset. And for as little as $1 a month, you can support the production budget of the show. You get a few perks. You get a shout out right here, right now on the podcast. You get your gamer tag posted on our website, and an invitation to a Discord channel just for Dirt Fan patrons and supporters. Well, Merc, it's been great having you on this week. I really appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's like I said, it's always fun to be on Destiny Reset, and I very much enjoyed the conversation about Solstice and raids and light deltas and everything like that. It's always a fun
everything
time.
In between. We covered a lot of stuff. Tell us where people can find you and Massive Breakdowns and everything else on the internet.
Oh boy, we got for myself, Mercules904 on Twitter, Mercules904 on Xbox, Mercules904 on Reddit. Those are the three places you're most likely to find me as an individual. I'm also Mercules904 on Twitch. I've been streaming a little bit more the last couple of weeks. It's not really my thing, but I did have fun the last 2 times, so maybe I'll keep that up a little bit. Destiny Massive Breakdowns, the podcast. We are on pretty much everywhere you can find podcasts. So Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, Podbean, Spotify, pretty much everything. I think the only thing we weren't able to get on was Pandora. But besides that, if it's got podcast on it, we're probably on there. It's Destiny Massive Breakdown. You can also find it on Twitter at Destiny MBP.
Nice.
And we do giveaways all the time. So all you gotta be doing is following us, and you might, get lucky and get something mailed to your house. Like, a signed deck of cards or a signed canvas or something like that. So definitely come join us.
That's awesome. You can find me at CyborgSasquatch on Twitter. You can find my regular co-host, AER0KNIGHT on Twitter at the same, AER0KNIGHT. And then you can find us, at Destiny Reset on Twitter on the web at www.destinyresetpodcast.com. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you for your reviews. We continue to rack them up, and all you awesome Guardians that are listening, leave those for us. If you haven't, please go do that, because it helps us get seen and heard by more listeners just like you. And if you haven't joined our community, go to Discord. That's our chat server, discord.gg/destinyreset. You can join in and hang out with 1,000+ Guardians just like you that want to talk about Destiny, games, nerdy stuff, and life. And there's a lot of awesome people there to hook up and play games with. So come hang out. All right, man. Thanks again for joining us on the show. And y'all go follow Merc, Kit, and Massive Breakdowns and give them a listen and support them, because they are awesome community members.
Well, thank you for having me, and I look forward to being back sometime in the future as well.
Absolutely. Until next reset, have fun playing Destiny 2, and take care, Guardians.